Hey, Audio Road listener, what is your profit per mile? How about your cost per mile? Or even your bottom line? Stop driving blind and know your numbers. Profit Gauges is absolutely simple bookkeeping specifically for owner-operators. Have instant access to business and tax reports that will help you increase your profits and keep your money in your pocket where it belongs. Sign up for Profit Gauges today and take advantage of our 30-day free trial. Know your numbers and master the journey. Visit our website at letstruck.com or call our Tribe Care Team at 855-800-FUEL. That's 855-800-3835.
Your money, your taxes, your truck, and your road to success in the trucking industry. This is Trucking Business and Beyond, the show that puts the money where it belongs, back in your pocket.
Good morning, you beautiful bunch of fuckers, and welcome to my world. I'm your host, Kevin Rutherford. It is Monday, September 23rd. We are here live. Brent Hutto is with me. In fact, I'll just bring him in right now, and we'll get started. Brent, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. Every time I hear you do your intro, I got a little giggle, man. Every single time. I love the way you start it. Because if you're not listening closely,
Oh yeah,
you may think you're being disparaging, but you're not.
yeah.
I love it.
Transcription on a computer was around about 20 years ago, but 20 years ago it was really awful. Like you had to sit and read to the program for like an hour and a half so it would recognize your voice. And then it would still only get about 90% of the stuff right after a lot of training. And it was frustrating. And now the transcription is nearly perfect, except it messes that word up every day. Every day on the transcription, it messes that word up.
Maybe it's enunciation. I don't know.
So I try to get that O sound in there, but sometimes it just sounds like the other word.
Either way, I think they understand the admiration and respect that you're trying to show.
That's right. That's right. So where are you this morning? Are you at home today?
No, I wish I was at home. Although, you know what? I like being out on the road. I know you do too. That's why you take the RV and you like to get out and, kind of see the country and kind of feel free. Part of freedom is being able to go where we want to go when we want to go, which is, within reason. That's a great thing. So I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, one of my favorite cities because of the trees. I love all the trees in Charlotte. If you've never been to Charlotte, most cities are on like streets and avenues, right? They're like, avenues run one way, streets run the other. They're on this little 90-degree grid. Charlotte, I think that the architect that designed this city had a little too much to drink because they've got about 5 roads. They got about 5 roads, and they're all related to something called Nations Ford, and they're all weaving around each other. But it makes for a beautiful drive in the city because they've got all these trees downtown. It's just really beautiful. I love Charlotte. I spent a long time here before I got into trucking when I was working, believe it or not, the Japanese market. And but Charlotte's a banking hub. It's grown up a ton in the last 15, 20 years. And it's good to be here. I'm here at the McLeod TMS Users Conference, which is a back office organizational tool for carriers and for brokers in this marketplace. And they do a great job in helping freight move really efficiently.
There you go. I almost lived in Charlotte for a while.
I'm not surprised. You've almost lived everywhere. Every time I talk to you, I almost lived there.
That one was really close. So when I had my trucks and I was in Ohio, and all my trucks at the time were contracted to FedEx, and I just wanted to get out of Ohio and out of the weather and do something new. And after a lot of research, I settled on Charlotte and Jacksonville, and I started working on the two, and Jacksonville came through first. Otherwise, I might have lived in Charlotte for a while. Who knows?
You might. Yeah, I always remember that you worked for FedEx. Early in your career, you were doing a lot for FedEx. And interesting, the keynote speaker at lunchtime here is the one and only Ramona Hood, who is the current CEO of FedEx Freight, who announced her retirement And so, but she's going to be speaking. It's an incredible story. If you don't know Ramona's story, go look it up. But I'll give you just the cliff notes on it. She started out her career at FedEx as a secretary.
Wow.
And she is the CEO of an entire division.
Wow.
She's a remarkable person, a great leader. She loves freight, man. She loves freight so much. And but she is going to move on to the next sort of part of her life and career. But she's had a great one at FedEx, and she's done a good job there.
Good stuff. So, you know what I thought we would do today? I don't have much of anything.
Come on.
I ignored.
I got a few things, yeah.
I ignored the news all weekend, so I have no idea what's going on. I spent the last 3 days clearing land, and I feel like I have been
isn't that fun?
Run over by a bus and then backed over by a truck.
Are you trying to say you're not as young as you used to be?
Here's the interesting thing, really. The amount of physical labor I did in the last 3 days, I would not have been able to do in my 30s.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
do tell. Why not?
I wouldn't have had that kind of energy and stamina. And I mean, they were long days of physical labor from morning till night. And it's really kind of amazing that I can do that much. The problem is when after 3 days of that, I'm a little beat up. I mean, my hands are all cut up. My feet are sore. My body hurts. I was wrestling a brush hog around, or a hedgehog, as Lisa calls it. Now she's got me doing it.
Hedgehog?
She started calling the brush hog a hedgehog. I'm like, what hedgehog are you talking about? She's like that.
Now, is a brush hog the same as a bush hogger?
Yeah, see, I often wondered about that. Which one is the correct term? Because I see bush hog and brush hog both. So I think those words are interchangeable. So I've got a big one that I can pull behind the tractor and mow the field. But I'm clearing land, and I'm clearing down into the creek. So I went and rented a walk behind. And I'm thinking, well, this is going to be easy.
Yeah.
It's self-propelled. It is.
Yeah, but you still got to manage it, man. You got to manage. You got to wrangle that bad boy, man.
Yeah, you really have to wrangle it, and it wore me out. So after 3 days of that, yesterday was like 12 hours of that. And
oh my gosh,
cutting down trees and dragging trees out of there, and then getting in with the brush hog and clearing with that. And it looks great. I can see the creek now, but I'm a little wore out today.
Yeah, but you feel good, no, man. You feel, because you know, as you get older, and most younger adults don't understand this, where you go, you know, I like cutting the grass. They go, I like cutting the grass. Yeah, I like bush hogging or brush hogging. What? Is there something wrong with you when you get older? No, there's nothing wrong with you. You like that you can start something and you can finish something and you can see your results, because as you get older, you're doing things with strategy and you're doing forecasting and planning and all this stuff. Yeah. And you don't really ever get to see the finished product. But when you're brush hogging, I'll call it by your term. In Alabama, we call it bush hogging. Bush hogging, not hogging. So, but
we'll take
it's fun, man. Today. You do stuff. Manual work is great because you just feel like, dang, I did something.
You know, that really, there is a difference. So you know me, I stare at a screen all day. I read, I research, I talk. Yeah, and it feels good to get outside and do something physical. Mm-hmm. It really does. And that's a big reason for, buying that property, was so that I have something that keeps me active. Yeah. This
I'm
weekend,
with you. I had a good friend of mine.
May have been a little much, but it was, like I said, I got a lot done. Well, we have Kevin Rutherford overdid himself. He took on too much. That sounds irregular for you. Yeah.
So I mean, come on, that's normal for you. You're gonna tackle it. I had a friend of mine that owns a big farm south of where I live in Tuscaloosa, and I said, look, one of my bucket list things is to come down and drive the big tractor and bush hog. They've got like 15,000 acres, and about 1,500 of it is open pasture. He goes, really? He goes, you can come down and do that all you want. So I did it one afternoon. It was one of the best afternoons in the last decade of my life. It was so fun. I can understand now why truckers like being out on the road, man, because it's just like, you see what you need to do. You get to go do it. At the end of the day, you feel like you finished something. You got the job done. and you feel like that that you got a little bit more meaning. So I get it a little bit, why truckers love to do what they do.
Isn't it weird how the work you and I do now, when it's, kind of what we do, it doesn't feel like that. Sometimes it doesn't feel like you accomplish much.
No,
You do a lot of stuff over and over and over. You go to meetings, you're on
come on,
planes, you're
come on,
at
come on.
conferences, but it's not the same as, like you said, when you can look at a project and go, well, here's what I need to do, and you go out and you do physical labor and you get it done. And it does feel good. And it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like even when you finish a big project, it's always like, I don't know, it's different.
Well, I know you, and since in these decades that we've known each other, and I know that you and I both get that satisfaction now when we get to talk to somebody about helping them solve their challenge that they've got, and they put that in action, and then they call back or they send you an email or something that, hey, that's working. And so you do get a payoff there. And that's kind of why you and I love to do what we love to do, because in the end, we're just trying to help people do what they love to do. And I get a lot of satisfaction out of that, Kevin, when I go to a show and a carrier or a trucker comes up to the booth and they say, hey, man, I used your product and this happened. It was really great for me. And to me, that's the satisfaction I get today. And I know you do too.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I thought we would do today is we'll talk about what's going on in the market, but then what if we just open it up for phone calls today and see what everybody else
Oh
wants
my
to
gosh,
talk
that'd be
about?
great. Yeah.
All right.
That'd be great.
Phone lines are open. Brent's going to tell us what's going on in the market, and then we're going to sit here silent until somebody calls. So it's up to you guys. 855.
Wow, that's a challenge, man.
950-3835. I would say, oh, it is working. Okay. We've been having problems with our call now button on the app. Last week it kept disappearing.
God.
Isn't that odd?
Uh-oh.
Like, how does
Dang
a button
technology
disappear from the app? It's just gone. Yeah, and Aaron got it working, it looks like. So you can hit that call now button.
Great.
That'll get you in here as well. It is a free-for-all. We are going to let you guys run the show today. Whatever you want to talk about, call us up and I don't know, maybe see if you can stump us. That might be fun.
Oh, that's always fun, man.
Yeah.
Shoot, yeah.
So
yeah, I'll do that. Go ahead.
Brent?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. What's going on in the market?
Yeah, fantastic. So, what's going on in the market is because I'll give you what's driving things. What I'm going to say is some of the things that you and I have been saying, honestly, Kevin, for the last year, and even longer than that. It's just been kind of at this, what's in some case, I'll give you the why behind the what's going on first. The why is our U.S. economy was continuing to adjust to high inflation that caused during the pandemic, when we had all the buying and all of the money that the government put into the population, all the checks that everybody got and continued to get. And that drove inflation really high. And this marketplace has been continuously being adjusted by the big banking groups, which is known as the Federal Reserve. That's the government entity that regulates how money flows. And that's really what they do. And they adjust it by moving the rate up or moving it down, so it's easier or perceptually or harder to get money. And so we've kind of just been in this sort of flat or maintenance mode, was what I like to call it, with our economy, the overall gross domestic product of the United States economy. We're a production economy. The one thing Americans, what we do and the reason why we're the strongest country in the world is because we're damn good at production. We get stuff done and we put a product out and we do really well at it. And we also are innovative, and technology continues to innovation, which is there's innovation in technology and other things too, that continue to grow and move things forward. And that's the big growth in any market, is as you have innovation across any platform, marketplaces continue to thrive and grow. But our economy has just been in maintenance mode, coming out of the craziest, biggest market ever in the history of trucking. It was really good for everybody's bottom line, and that's a great thing for truckers, and it's a great thing for people who make their living moving freight. But we had this 2-year big, great marketplace. And now we've been 2 years in kind of a ho-hum marketplace. It's been, if you're a medium-sized, a large-sized carrier, it's been a average marketplace. If you've been a spot market carrier, it's kind of been below average. And so what you see right now is just what you're going to see for the next end of the year through the beginning of the first of the year is the U.S. economy is just going to kind of go along at a normal, flat maintenance way, and you're not going to see a lot in the overall market. Now, in the spot market, you're going to continue to see rates edge up because they've been 20 to 30% below what they needed to be. So spot market rates will continue to move up. They have been moving up the last 9 weeks above last year's rate, which you just want to go over last year. Don't want to look back too far. Every trucker out there, man, hear me on this when I say this. Do not go back to 2022 or 2021, 2020, when the marketplace was going crazy and go, hey, we got to get back there, because we're not going back there unless something happens in regulations that drives a very challenging capacity marketplace or the hours of service get reduced, because we're not going to go back there anytime soon, presently. So when you look at the market, it continues to be stronger because there's more players in the market, there's more carriers in the market, for hire carriers, there's more freight in the marketplace, but it's depressed because there's more truckers than there is normally to move that freight. And so that's one of the issues. The pressure in the market has been in the 50s. It's going to stay in the 50s. And when I say in the 50s, if you hear me say the pressure in the market is 90, you're going to make a lot more money. If you hear me say it's 50 or below 50, you're going to make less money. So just take that as a standard. Just use 50 as a number. So load postings are about normal for this time of year. Rates have been going up and down a little bit. If you look at the market over the last 4 weeks, and I just look at them always in 4-week trends, Kevin. The van rate right now, this is just the posted rate, not the negotiated rate. If you know your lane and you know your marketplace, and maybe as you and I have said, if you got a good relationship with that broker or even that shipper, you should be negotiating higher rates than this. But van was at $1.83. But what's interesting is it's dropped 12 cents in the last 4 weeks, and that's not as great as what truckers would like it to be. Flatbeds remained even, 223, about the same as it was 4 weeks ago. Refrigerated has dropped the most. It's 231 in the last 4 weeks. It's dropped 20 cents.
Ooh. But
fuel continues to come. I know. Fuel continues to come down by like 1 penny every couple of weeks. Right now, it's at the lowest it's been in almost a year. It's dropped 21 cents in the last 42 weeks, and it's only 4 cents above when Russia invaded Ukraine, which started driving the fuel way up.
Yeah.
But what's promising, and I'll stop with this. What's promising here is that the overall market for contract freight, the rejections, in other words, the freight that's renegotiated, it continues to be right near 5%. And we need it to be at 5% because that's the bottom of the normal for the spot market for freight being renegotiated. And when it's renegotiated, sometimes the renegotiation rate is too high and they move it to the spot market, which when we get to like 5, 6, 7% of rejections in the contract marketplace, the freight rates start going up in the spot market. But so overall, it's just, I say all these numbers and stuff, and I hope I'm not saying them too fast but it's just one of these things where if you just look at the numbers, look at them for directional numbers. What are they doing directionally? And remember that every piece of freight in the spot market for small carriers and owner operators, it's always negotiated one load at a time. And if you know your lane and you know the pressure in the lane, you should be able to negotiate fundamentally better rates than are posted, and which should drive better profitability for you. But that's kind of where things are in the market. I was in Washington, D.C., Kevin, and I talked to Bob Costello, who's the ATA economist. I've talked to other economists, I've talked to other analysts in the market. I've talked to leaders in the market over the last couple of weeks, and there's not a lot fundamentally that anyone sees that's going to drive rates back up quickly. Very slow over a period of time, which is look, predictable is good.
Right.
Because when you can predict things, the stability and predictability, look, then you can prepare for it. And you can figure out, hey, I'm not going to move that freight. I'm going to move this freight over here because it's 20% higher. And if you know how to study the numbers on truck stop or the load board that you might use, dive in and look at the geographic areas, look at the pressure in the different geocentric areas or the lanes that are going on, and you can find freight that is moving at really good rates.
Yeah, the number that I heard and all that really worries me probably more than any is that van rate.
Okay.
That's low.
Yeah.
That's
right.
it
is.
Historically, that would not have been a really bad number. But the problem now is inflation. The cost side of
Right.
this has
Correct.
gone way up on so many things. Service is
Oh yeah.
insane anymore. For these guys living on the road, just the cost of eating out. The cost of
Yep.
eating
Yep.
anywhere has gotten out of control. But if you have to eat out more often, and it's just the cost of everything has gone up. So that $1.84 wouldn't have worried me 5 or 6 years ago. But that's a number for a lot of people. It's going to be tough to make any profit at all at that rate.
Absolutely. This goes back to the idea of having a relationship and trying to get that $1.83 to somewhere around $2 or something like that, or somewhere in that range. But you also look at what the insurance costs. You talk about
that's another
eating,
big one. You're
your
right.
base cost. Oh my gosh, insurance has gone up so much across the market.
Yeah.
And so it's all about it's just like you and I talk about controlling in this market. Controlling your costs is as important as the rate that you get from hauling something, because the costs are each alive.
Yeah. It's here's the other thing. I don't know. You spend a lot of time around a lot of business people in different industries and segments, and the feeling I get from people in business right now is that everybody's just kind of sitting back and holding their breath and waiting.
Yep. Yep.
Nobody wants to make any big decisions, and I've been telling people, don't make big decisions right now. There's too
No, I
much.
agree with you. Yeah.
Too much we don't know, and this one, we've kind of been saying this every election for a long time now, but this one really feels like we're going in one of two very different directions after this election.
Well, you're right. If you look at if the current administration moves forward into the next presidential administration, then you're going to get more regulations and more governance, and so it'll create a challenge in the marketplace. If you get a change in administration, and this is the thing that drives me nuts, because when people talk about Trump's administration and they talk about him, if he was to become president again, why would anybody think that there would be any different philosophies? People don't change their philosophies.
Right.
And so he was an anti-regulation guy. He wanted to reduce regulations, which made help trucking, have less hindrances around it. And so it's interesting how we have an administration right now, yet the person that's wanting to become the next president for the current administration says, oh, they're going to be very different. Well, we know what they're about. So you kind of know you're right. We know the strategies on which way they're going to go. And so one is going to be more fundamentally more beneficial to trucking than others. But I will say this, a lot of regulations make rates go up in trucking, although it makes trucking harder, maybe a little bit more expensive. But if we get something like and I do not want this for the marketplace, if we got speed limiters, rates would go way up.
Yeah, they would.
But I don't want that, because that limits people's freedom.
Right. No, that's a good point. We've talked about that forever. Over the years, I have disagreed with the White on a lot of things, but I think one of the most brilliant campaigns they had, and I wish they would have pushed it harder, I wish they would bring it back. Remember when, and we were probably arguing about hours of service. I don't remember what the issue even was, but their response was, drive 55 and drive compliant on your hours of service. And they were pushing that. And had that actually happened, rates would have gone through the roof. It would still happen today. A lot of drivers don't realize we talk about slow down for, fuel mileage, which we talk about all the time. the slower we drive, the less supply there is, and that drive rates up. Rates are always supply and demand. And if you have trucks driving less miles, that's less supply and rates go up. We saw it in 2018 with the ELD mandate.
Yeah.
We saw rates go up because
right.
And in reality, nothing should have changed. Just because they put an ELD in the truck didn't mean your hours of service changed.
Oh,
so what we know is we all used to cheat a lot. Right? I mean, that's the only conclusion you could. We all know that. Every driver knows your logbook was never 100%, not even close. The only time mine was, no, that's not true either. I was going to say at FedEx, we had such scheduled runs, and they scheduled us, I think, on 47 miles an hour. But even then, my logbook was never accurate. Technically, you go on duty the minute you walk on the property of the trucking company. I used to spend sometimes 2 hours in the morning waiting for a trailer. You never logged that stuff.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, the ELDs, just to let you know the dramatic effect. So when ELDs got finally mandated and everyone had to use them, it took about 5 to 7% efficiency out of the market, and we had this crazy good market for about 14 or 15 months.
Yep.
So it doesn't take a lot of efficiency being pulled out of the market to drive the rate up. So that's why I talk about like things like speed limiters, which is being talked about, or the environment, the EPA things that they put in there. That changes the dynamic.
Yeah.
AB5, the independent contractor attack, that will change things. The Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse is already changing things. It's very slow, but it's changing things. And so regulations are what make our markets go up and down because we are still a after effect of what goes on in the U.S. economy. We don't drive the economy. We're just a really fast.
Yeah.
The spot market data that comes out, Kevin, is just a really fast reflection of what's going on in the overall U.S. economy. It just comes out faster than anybody else's because people like Truck Stop and our competitor can get it out in 7 or 8 days, and not 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Hey, what do you say we take some phone calls? They're starting to pile up on us.
Man, I'd love to. That'd be Oh, great.
Yeah,
fantastic. Let's do it.
Let's do that. Oh, there we go. Let's go to Minnesota to get started. John, good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. What's on your mind today?
So, when are you doing the book club? Is that on Mondays or?
Yeah, we're gonna kick it off next Monday. I have got I've got so much going on this week that I've got a schedule. I've got several books I want to do, but I think we're gonna kick it off next week.
Okay. We're still on Who Moved My Cheese, correct?
We are, yes.
Okay.
Wow, great book, yeah.
And Brent, you know what we might be going on to after that? That's one of the other reasons I'm trying to decide if I want to do this or not, because it would tie us up for a long time.
Okay.
But did you ever read the series Left Behind?
I did. I read the entire series.
I did too, 12 books. I thought they were excellent.
Oh, yes. You know, here's let me tell you something crazy about that. I was not a reader at all. I mean, look, I went through high school. Out of all the required reading in English, I read 2 books completely. I read Call of the Wild, which I thought was great.
Call of the Wild is a great book.
What was the one about boys? No, not Lost Boys. No. Anyways, I read 2 books, and that's it. I did the cliff notes on everything else, and I got through English because I didn't love English. I was a math guy. But the Left Behind series, somebody gave me the audio book on it when I was starting at Overdrive. My first year in 1998, somebody gave me the audio book. They go, "Hey, Brent, you believe in this stuff. How about reading it and doing an evaluation for us, like a book evaluation for the magazine?"
Yeah.
I listened to it, and I was so captivated by it. I read all of the rest of the books.
Wow.
And so it's fantastic. It's the series that got me going on reading. I know how much you talk about keep learning, keep reading, So it's the series that got me going on that. Yeah. So Left Behind. There you go.
So I'm thinking about doing that because my Monday, we're going to start up a Monday space on X, and it's just going to be a book review. I've tried other
Okay.
topics, nothing works.
Nice,
I'm going to
fun.
try a book review, and we'll have fun with that. And with everything that was going on, and I remembered that series the other day, and I thought, boy, that'd be interesting to go back. I was shocked when I went to look up the book and saw that there is now a 25th anniversary edition. I didn't realize it was that long ago that I
Right.
read it.
Well, that just means we're getting old.
I know. All right, John, what else you got?
And Brent,
Yes,
there was
sir.
a suggestion you gave us about a month ago on a series that we should do on the book club, and I can't remember what it was.
Oh, my book on economics? Was that
Might
it?
have been what it was.
Well,
Might have,
it's
there
probably,
was
yeah, John, it may be the book I suggested to Kevin. It's called Economics
Yeah.
in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. It's like it's the most celebrated basic books on understanding U.S. economics in general, but U.S. economics, and it takes it from the Austrian economics viewpoint, which the Austrian economics viewpoint is all economies are based on the production that those people can put out. It's not based on what the government can do. It's based on the individual doing something and producing something. And so, but it's a great. I've enjoyed it tremendously.
Well, that might be one to add to the list when we get done with the Left Behind series.
I just added it
Sure.
to my Kindle.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Looking forward to next Monday then. I was just making sure I didn't have to catch today. So
All right.
have a
Yes,
good
sir.
day.
Thanks for the call. Brent, did I tell you about my experience with the Starlink Mini?
You did. Yeah,
So
you did. But refresh us on it.
yeah, so now I've been doing some experimenting with it. So the dish itself is small enough to fit in a backpack pretty comfortably. I mean, it's the
I remember.
size
Yeah.
of like
Mhm.
my 14-inch laptop. So it'd be like carrying two
Right.
laptops around, which I've done in the past, but it's not nearly as heavy, just about the same size. The router is built in. So in the traditional Starlink, you've got a separate router, which means you have more cables. You got to connect the dish to the router. Then the router becomes your Wi-Fi or your internet. Here, the router is built right into this small dish. There's one power cord. And this past week, I was experimenting just running off of a battery pack that would fit in my pocket. And there's some battery
Right. Wow.
packs on the market now that'll run this thing for a couple hours. And with two of them,
Yeah.
it looks like I could probably do an entire show, 3-hour show on one of these battery packs, but I could certainly do it with two.
Wow.
So with a backpack, I could walk out anywhere. Don't need power, don't need it, just plug it in, set it on the ground, and you're on the internet.
That is fantastic, man. Technology can. That was my point to you about technology earlier when I made the point about innovation. One of the reasons why America is a leading country is that we encourage such sort of cowboyness. And what I mean by cowboyness is, man, go do it yourself. You can do it yourself. And it's one reason why trucking is we have the best, transportation system in the world, is because people go out and do it themselves. But innovation is what's driven the market increases in any economy. It's an economic curve that was the theory that was established by this Russian economist during Stalin's reign, and it didn't agree with communism. It said the free market is the best way for any economy to work, and so Stalin didn't like it, and he put him in a gulag, and then he killed him. So because he was right. It's called the contractive. I'll send you a link. I'll send you a slide on it. It is amazing how economies have grown because of innovation.
Yeah,
within the technology,
Yeah.
within the economy.
Yeah, no doubt. I downloaded this book, Economics in One Lesson, and I was just looking at
There you
the
go.
chapter titles. Boy, does this look interesting.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
It just,
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
So just here's some of the titles. Public works mean taxes. That's going to be an interesting chapter.
Right.
Taxes,
Oh, I know it. Yeah.
taxes discourage production. Credit diverts production. The curse of machinery. Well, that sounds like that might be an interesting chapter. Spread the work schemes. Disbanding troops and bureaucrats. The fetish of full employment. You just look at these titles and you know this got to be an interesting book.
That one will get you, the fetish of full employment.
Yeah.
That I was because how many times have you heard reported by the news and everyone else that, oh gosh, we've got 3% or 4% unemployment? That the only place when you read the chapter, it's gonna open your eyes. The only place you're ever going to get full employment is in places like China or Russia, when you can be conscripted to work. In other words, forced to take a job.
Yeah.
In America, you know why we don't have full employment? Because we have personal choice.
Yes.
In today's marketplace, everybody that wants a job's got one.
Correct.
The other people just don't want a job, or they have something in their life that they don't want. They want to work or they can't work.
Yep.
Some people might have a mental issue or a physical issue going on. For the most part, America, we should the goal should never be full employment, ever.
So here's 4 chapters I wish people would read before this election. Really, I could knock it down to 2, but so here's 4 that I'd love people to read. There's a chapter titled Government Price Fixing. I have an idea. I know what's coming from that one. The next chapter, What Rent Control Does. If people would just read those 2 chapters, I think it would change the entire election. If people really understood those 2 chapters, because both of those things are being talked about by Harris.
Oh yeah, price controls ruin markets.
Yes.
Anytime, and rent control is a price control. It ruins. It makes scarcity. And it ruins the advancement and the lowering of a price on a product in a market. Price controls are terrible. This is why tariffs, when you look at tariffs, in some cases, if a country is doing something, or another country is doing something untowards our country, tariffs can help. But for a long term, tariffs are really bad because there has to be a balance between what comes in our country and what we ship out of our country. There's not a balance. Tariffs don't help that. They just make it more difficult for it to actually work.
Well,
so it blew my mind. I mean, this is why, here's the thing. I'll go back to this, Kevin. Do you know why the American Revolution started in Boston?
No, I don't think. I might after you tell me.
Here's why. Well, I'll tell you, you're going to go, that makes perfect sense. I'm up. I got 2 kids in Boston in school. I'm up doing the tour of Boston. I've never done the tour of Boston. And our tour guide was really great, really fun guy, just real big historian. And he said, the reason why the American Revolution started in Boston is because Boston's literacy rate in the 1700s was almost 90%.
Whoa.
They could read the newspapers, they could read the papers, they could read the things that were being imposed on them, and they're like, this is BS. We're not standing for this. The literacy rate was almost 90%. And why do I say that? I say that because here's a book that is a basic, straightforward economics book. I mean, it's basic and straightforward. It teaches you about how economies work. And you say this all the time. When you say know your numbers, what you're telling a carrier is be informed on your market. Know your market. Know our market. Our market in the United States is our economy. Know it. If you know it, guess what? It's amazing how well you can do in it.
Hey, Brent, you know what's really interesting about that statistic?
What's that?
First off, in the 1700s, being able to read, books were outrageously expensive. So when I heard that number, 90%, I thought, I bet we're not even there today. We're not. The literacy rate in the U.S. is 79%.
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't that scary? 79%,
that
not
is
90%.
Scary.
And we wonder why
that is scary.
Our elections are so goofy.
Well, I mean, if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. If you're not informed, you're just going to keep repeating things that aren't good for us. And so the idea is just to keep yourself informed. This is what I talk to all 5 of my kids about. This is what you've taught me about in trucking, Kevin, is, man, just know your marketplace. This is why when I talk to truckers that use Truck Stop and they look at it, I go, how well do you know how to use the platform? Well, I know how to, look for loads and this and that. And I go, have you ever called Truck Stop or gone online and done our tutorials on the product? And, well, no, I haven't done that. I'm busy moving freight, and I get that.
Right.
I'm like, just take the time to educate yourself. And man, your numbers will be 10, 20, 30% above everyone else's. Because by default, you'll know how to find the best that's out there.
Yep. That's exactly right. All right, let's take another call. Let's go to Tennessee this time. Zach, welcome.
Hey, I'm from Indiana. I live in Tennessee, but put me down for Bush Hagen, Hagen.
You got it.
I'm sure if you're from Alabama, as they say down here, you're not a fur piece.
Yeah,
that's right.
Folks around me, they'd want to hear Bush Hagen. So, my call. Kevin, I've been listening to old shows and new shows together, different times. You mentioned a video that you had watched 20 Western countries had signed some type of agreement, sounded like extradition to be prosecuted. I look for it. I can't find it. Can you give me some guidance on how to find this video?
Oh, yeah. Are you on X?
No.
Okay, I posted it on X. Let me go see if I can figure out where you might find that somewhere else. While I'm looking, do you have anything else
Our
today?
good friends at Google probably aren't going to tell us about it.
Yeah, I doubt that you're ever going to find this. Oh, wait a minute. I want to make sure I'm thinking of this is not the documentary. This was the, I know there it is right there. So how would we find this? Let me open it up.
I do have another something I was going to talk about Friday that I didn't. You and I have talked about warranties before, and my previous life I was a service writer in new car dealerships. I understand that's not Class A truck dealerships, but I assume there's going to be some similarities. And the idea of what voids your warranty, what doesn't void your warranty, and I've been thinking about that. You and Bruce were talking about it recently. The idea of they have to prove it. True, but as a truck driver, if you are based in, say, Utah and you happen to be in New Jersey when your truck breaks down, you probably don't have a relationship with any dealership out there. And if they pull this, because what we did, the way I remember it, if you brought something in to be worked on, per the manufacturer, it had to be put back to stock before we would even look at it. Now, I don't know how much of that transfers over into the truck world, but let's say you live in Utah, your truck breaks down in New Jersey, and you've got it all, whatever, as far as modifications, and they come out and say, well, you either got to get it stock or you've got to get it back to that dealership you have a good relationship with in Utah. Well, either way, you're going to be stuck with thousands of dollar tow bills. So I would say don't do any of them kind of modifications till your warranty's out if you're concerned about the warranty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I've talked about this, that technically they cannot void the warranty just because you modified something. That is the law. The problem is the law isn't always upheld in the real world. And when the dealer just says, no, you modified it, we're not going to honor the warranty, your only choice then is to try to go above them, which can get difficult. And at some point, you may even have to take something to court. So I could care less about warranties. So I will modify a truck on day one, whatever I need to do to make it run better and be more efficient, and then just deal with it later. But for some people, that would make them a little crazy. So here is the way you find this video.
Go ahead.
So you go to unite.live, UNITE.LIVE, unite.live. Then at the top, there's a search. At the top, there's a search bar, and search for free speech, and it will be the first video that comes up. The title of the video is called "Free Speech Under Attack."
Okay, very good. Thanks for your help. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And that is a free video to watch if you get to that site as well. Brett, I was going to say it's interesting that's the one he asked about. I've been talking about this a lot. we could go through all kinds of differences between these two candidates. We just talked about, one's for a lot of
Right.
regulation, one's for very, very little regulation. One of the things that really helped owner operators a lot, and I think they're maybe a little shocked this year, was that 20% business tax pass through. That really helped lower taxes for small business. Probably the single best piece of tax legislation I've seen for small businesses ever, except it expired. And the only
Right.
way we're going to get that back is if Trump is reelected. I think he will make that permanent, or he will certainly try to. But the one thing that worries me, we could go through all the differences, and there's a lot of them. The one that really worries me a lot, and I'm shocked
Right.
by what I'm seeing, is this attack on free speech. I mean, the
Oh
Harris
yes.
administration is saying out loud, there is too much misinformation on social media, and we need to crack down on it. That's a scary sentence.
I'm not for it. That is a very scary sentence. And the reason that we have freedom in America is because we have free speech.
That's
And
it.
there's a reason why a reason why
Yeah.
it's important to our Constitution and Bill of Rights. And so it is free people should be able to speak their mind in civil discourse across the board. Now, if you are and there's conditions on that. You can't incite a riot.
Right.
Okay, that's violence against people. You can't incite a riot, which I support that because
Yeah,
our forefathers knew a lot about it, about riots. So, but yeah, it scares me to death that there are people, and here's the thing. This is the reason why we got to be careful as we continue to move into the modern world of free access to information, or what we perceive as free access to information. Remember, do you remember what your mom and dad used to say, Kevin? There's no such thing as a free lunch.
That's right.
Somebody, you're paying somehow. So even though you may think that the Google, as my dad used to say, is free access to information, you're paying for it with your data and information.
Yes.
And so there's always a cost. But because these big platforms, and you went through this as people tried to muzzle you, unfairly. And is that if they own the platform, which means here's the thing they never tell you, they own the distribution.
Yes.
If they own the distribution, that this is another thing in the economics book about distribution of things. It's a very important aspect. Whoever owns the distribution owns the market. So if you're using things like, you're building your business on Instagram, or you're building your business on Facebook or LinkedIn or anywhere else, they own the platform, you don't. And so they actually own your product. So you got to be, and you and I had a famous long conversation about this many years ago. And that's why I applaud you for going and owning your distribution, because you have to be very, very, very careful about that in today's thing. But here's the reason that's dangerous, is that means they can modulate your speech.
Yes.
What you want to bring to market.
Yeah.
And that is why anyone, and by the way, these are not Democrats that want to do this. These are leftists.
Yes.
You have to understand, in the pantheon of belief, these are people that are called leftists that want to control you by governing you.
Yep.
That's what a leftist does. Not a Democrat. Democrats and Republicans are kind of in the middle anyways.
Right.
But it's a leftist that wants to do this. And by the way, there's just as many super bad things if you're you're a way right person. So it's got to be, but I can't say that enough. I talk all the time to my children about this, about how important it is to understand what's going on inside of our marketplace, because your free speech is your license for freedom.
Brent, you might want to go watch this video. So,
bring it too. Yeah. What's in that? Give me the. You said you were telling Zach where you could find it. Where could you find it?
Yeah, go to unite.live. That's the website. And what's on this website are a lot of videos that the topic we're talking about right now. These videos would not be allowed to be hosted on YouTube. None of them. That's why they created this site, just like we created our own platform, Somebody created this site for videos that won't get hosted anywhere else because of censorship. So, and there's a lot of videos in here, so you could go down a rabbit hole, but this one in particular, if you go to unite.live, right at the top, there's a search bar, just put in free speech. And the title is Free Speech Under Attack. But if you type in free speech, it comes up first. But here's the premise behind this. The premise is that this is not a U.S. thing, that they uncovered documents. And they claim to have the it's so hard to fact check anything today. I could spend all day just trying to fact check the stuff that I'm reading about and probably still not know if it was true or not. I tend to believe more and more that the government is just lying to us. That is my first default on everything anymore, because I have proof that the government has lied to us about a lot of things, really important things. So my default now is, if I have to believe something, I'm going to believe they're lying to us first. And then I want somebody to prove they're not lying to us. But in this documentary, this video, they claim to have documents that there is a group of 20 first world countries that have a framework, a protocol, a training program, a methodology of censoring their population. And that this is a worldwide push, the WHO and NATO. And I mean, it's stuff that you would, a couple of years ago, I would have read and just dismissed it and said, oh, that's just crazy talk. And where's my tinfoil hat? Now I made a funny the other day. I said, tinfoil hats won't cut it anymore. You're going to need a stainless steel helmet. I would have, just a couple of years ago, I would have watched a video like this. And I'm not, I've been trying to follow this kind of stuff for a long time, but I don't think I would have believed this one a couple of years ago. Now I want somebody to prove this isn't true. And I don't know if anybody could.
Well,
when you look at,
is there another? When
you look at what's happening around the world, this idea that this is a coordinated effort between countries makes a lot of sense. We just saw France arrest the CEO of Telegram because he wouldn't censor the platform. We see Brazil shut down X completely and threaten their population that if you go around our rules and we catch you on X, it's going to cost you $9,000 a day in fines. We have calls here to censor social media. We know that social media was censored heavily during the last election, and I believe it had an absolute impact on that election, and yet we move on like nothing happened.
Well, it's there's always been a push by foreign entities to want to acquire what America has by sort of slow progress things, or it's kind of like when a lobster gets put in, you boil a lobster in hot water, in boiling water, right? You boil it, but the lobster never knows the water's getting hotter because they just increase it a little bit at a time. And it's the same thing with some of these foreign, I'll just say, entities, where they would really like to modulate what the United States does, because they don't believe in freedom like we believe in freedom. And so they want their reality to become our reality. Yet that's not what the American public wants. It may be what some of the American leaders want, but it's not what the American public wants. And you look anywhere in the world, and when enough pressure is put on people and enough freedom is taken away, they typically revolt. That's why we have, all the amendments to our Constitution, because it puts the power in the people's hands to be able to deal with their unruly government if they get that way. But not every government has that. We in America, we have opportunity. In places that are third world countries, or even somewhat developed second world or first world country, moderately developed ones, like somewhere in other countries, and they don't have freedom in the same levels that we have freedom.
Right.
And the world's gotten too comfortable, Kevin. We don't feel like anything's at threat. So they go, oh, what's the big deal? That's okay. Let that go. It's a big deal no matter what, because you have the right to your individualism. So why I love the American owner operator. You have the right as an individual to run your own desire to build your life and your business the way you want to. And that's what makes the American experience hands down the best for any. And this is, by the way, here's where the rubber hits the road. There's only one country in the world that people are willing to risk their life leaving their world, their country, to come to.
That's a
and
good
it's the
point.
United States.
You're right.
And we have to protect that. There's only one country that is sustaining its population because of immigration, and that's called the U.S. of A. There's not another one on the planet that has that. Everybody wants to come here because they go, I can build a life. I can build a future for myself. And that's important. That's vital. It's not important. It's vital to our lives.
Good point. So the premise behind this video, the 20 countries, and what you were just talking about, they kind of touch on that this was happening slowly over decades, and that what changed everything was the 2016 election. They thought for sure, whoever pulls all the strings, the deep state, whatever, they thought for sure that Hillary would win. That was their candidate. They had no doubt she was going to win. She probably would have, until Trump showed up out of the blue. And Trump is kind of ungovernable, and that
he doesn't owe anybody anything.
That's right.
So
the claim in the video was because of Trump winning that election, and they never saw that coming, that they had to speed up this whole process. And that's why since 2020, things have just kind of been crazy. It wasn't a pandemic, it was a plandemic, that this was all accelerated because of what happened in 2016. On the surface, when you look around at all the things that are happening, it makes a lot of sense. It's hard to get your head around something, though, that sounds so outrageous.
Well, because we trust that people want to do the right thing. We don't, it's never stuck in human beings in our sense. We're relational, and we want to have a relationship with somebody, which means we want to trust them. And so when you run across people that their goal is not your benefit, it's for their benefit, it just, we don't, in a sense, we don't get it, because we're like, well, why would people be that way? They're just supposed to do the right thing, right? I mean, the whole golden rule, just, do the right thing.
I know.
But for some reason, we've gotten so comfortable in the world, and so many countries have gotten so rich that we just think that, oh, well, just a little bit more and I can control everything. And I'm not for that. I'm for rugged individualism. I'm for the idea of America. My son Brink, who's such a great, fun historian to talk about. He's 18 years old, but you'd think he's like 50. He's so fun. He's like, Dad, that the America, it's an idea. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, it's this whole experiment that we continue to go through on fighting for freedom of the individual, not the country. It's the individual that makes the country strong.
Right.
Not, oh, it's for the betterment of the good of the people. No, he goes, Dad, there's no such thing as the people. It's the individual and then the state's rights. And that's it. They're both considered individuals in our Constitution. I go, I didn't know that. He goes, well, Dad, you should read the Constitution more. I go, I probably should.
That's a good point. That really sounds a lot like the philosophy of Ayn Rand.
Well, I'm sure it has a lot of Ayn Rand in it. Yeah, absolutely. Ayn Rand was studied by a lot of our, a lot of people in America have studied him. Absolutely.
Yeah. Atlas Shrugged, the Fountainhead, We the People, Anthem. Yeah. I mean, it was all about individual freedoms. and that it really is all about the individual. So, all right, let's get to some calls again. Let's go to Tennessee. Tom, welcome.
Good morning, or afternoon now.
Good morning, Tom.
Hey, how are you guys today?
Good. What can we
Good.
help
I'm
you
on
with?
East Coast time too, man. So it's afternoon for me.
All right.
It's not afternoon for Kevin yet.
Still morning for me.
No, it's still morning for
Yeah.
him. Hey, I wanted to touch on one thing. The fuel prices,
Yes,
they
sir.
were skyrocketing before Ukraine even was started.
Right.
So
I use that as a just a reference point for people for the industry. Kind of, you're right. They were going up and down because we had the Colonial Pipeline was put knocked out.
yeah,
So you're right about that.
right,
Yeah.
right. And I agree with Kevin. The process in 2016 wasn't strong enough, so they ramped it up for the next election to wipe out everything.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
think, it makes a lot of sense, but it's always hard to say. You can look back and put in, explanations, and it does make sense when you see everything that's happened. Again, I just go back to, it sounds so outrageous. I have a hard time getting my head around it, but I'm not sure that I can continue to ignore it. I mean, it just seems so real. And like I say, I deal with it constantly. I'm off YouTube again because I get so heavily censored
Oh,
on
wow.
YouTube. And I go back and look at the things I say, and it's just shocking to me that I'm being canceled over what I'm saying. It's not that outrageous. It's not that controversial. Most of what I'm saying has now been proven to be true, but you're still not allowed to
Right.
say it in
what
some
was
places.
conspiracy before has now been proven.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're running
And,
out of conspiracy
I mean,
theories
when-
because they keep coming true.
Right. Well, I mean, people usually fight to the end, and when you see people stop fighting for the election,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's because they think they've got it in the bag.
Well, that's true.
That's
Yeah.
just my opinion. So, but anyway, hey, I was just kind of curious. I hadn't gone down this road as far as an engine and transmission, but I wanted your opinion, Kevin, on how you would put together a DD15 this day and age for a fuel efficient truck.
So tell me a little bit about the operation.
I haul a bottle, propane bottle. I'm loaded about 65% of the time, and I run Tennessee to Georgia 90% of the time.
Okay. Pretty controlled operation there. Nothing over 80,000 pounds.
No, not much if it is.
Yeah. Okay. And what top speed do you like to run?
I like to run about 73 personally, but
Okay.
I've been getting a little better with that, trying to keep it around 70, 68.
Okay.
But
So
I would like one geared to run 73.
And are you okay with the 6x2, or is there any reason you think that might be a problem?
Well, no, I don't have a problem with a 6x2. The only thing is, I expect one out in Volvo, and when I went to the 6x2, I'm weight sensitive, as I figure you probably guessed. When I spec'd out a 6x2 with Volvo, the weight went up pretty dramatically.
You know what's shocking about this whole thing? We built a 6x2 back in 08, 09. And, we took out a big, heavy differential with a power divider, and we stuck in an axle that was lighter. And
Right.
when you built one back then, if we built a glider, and, the most cost-effective way to build it would have been a true glider, not a rolling glider, and put one differential under it and a lift axle. It would have been significantly cheaper to build too. In today's world, with a 6x2, they're heavier and more expensive. It's really bizarre. They have to, and this is all comes down to engineering They have to over-engineer everything. The frame's got to be heavier. There's a bunch of other things they're changing. So in a weight-sensitive operation, that that may be an issue for you, and you might need to go with the 6x4 then. The way you're going to spec this is with an overdrive and a final or a differential gear to get you to that 73. So we're probably going to be down in that really low 2 range. 217s, I think they have. And we want to get that RPM down. You know, this is an engine we can down speed. Have you considered the DD13?
I did, but it's kind of I did consider that. The salesman kind of talked me out of it. He said that I'd be safer to go with the DD15, even though it's like a 400-pound difference.
Safer in what? And that's what I'm shooting for here. If you're a weight-sensitive operation, what does he mean safer?
Well, safer as in the engine not having problems.
So,
because I wanted to go with the 13 with 525 horsepower, and he said the warranty on that would be astronomical compared to the DD15.
First off, I could care less about warranties. I never base anything about a purchase on warranties.
Yeah, I knew when I said that I shouldn't have.
Yeah, that is like so.
It's coming. It's coming.
That is so far down my list. Like if this is not an exaggeration. If they told me if you spec your truck like that, we won't give you any warranty. I don't care. I don't want one then. Really, that is just not a factor for me at all. I don't understand this thought process. 2 of the most bulletproof engines that I can remember are both 13 liters and under. Why do we not worry about a 12.7 Detroit? Not once did anybody ever say to me, oh, I can't put a 12.7 in this truck. It's too small. Nobody ever says that about the Series 60. But if you say I'm going to get a C12 Cat, oh, why are you going to get that small engine? Well, no, it's actually a little bigger than the 12.7 was. Well, I don't get. You just talked about speccing a Volvo. That was a 13 liter. That's what we spec in Volvos. Now, for me, if I'm looking at the right operation and I'm going with Volvo, I will consider the 11 liter as a potential engine. And 11 liter engines will pull 80,000 pounds around all day long and not hurt anything. It may not be ideal if you're that heavy, but this idea that a 13 liter is a small engine, I don't know where that comes from.
I don't know. I was just going by what.
No, I get it, but think about that. What if you're going to spec a Volvo? It's going to be a 13 liter. And that's really one of our most popular, high efficiency engines right now, and they pull fantastic. But all of a sudden you walk over to Freightliner, and if you want to spec the 13, they make it sound like a small engine. It's not. It's the most popular size of engine we've been using in Class A trucks for a long time. The only reason we even really went to the 15 liter on some of these engines was it was easier to meet emissions in a bigger engine. It's harder to do it in the smaller engine. But this idea that somehow you're compromising if you go with the 13 liter in the Freightliner, why is it not a problem with the Volvo?
I don't know. And I was a little confused why the 15 liter only goes to 505 and the 13 goes to 525.
Well, and that's the other point. We can get 700 horsepower out of any of these engines if we want to. We can take any of these engines to 650, 700 horsepower, 2,000 foot-pounds of torque. That is not a weak engine by any stretch of the imagination.
Even the 13?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not that hard.
Oh, wow.
Well, my C13 Cat, we've got it about 700 horsepower. Not now, I turned it back down. but we had it up there. It's not out of the question. I mean,
Wow.
technically, you could take these engines to 1,000 horsepower. That requires some physical part changing, and I'm not for it. But the idea that these are small engines and we can't get enough horsepower, or the warranty isn't going to, all that, I don't even understand the thought process. So I would, if the 6x4 is your choice because we can't handle the extra weight of the 6x2, then it would certainly seem to me like a 13-liter engine, and that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. He said there was a 13 or the 12-speed direct drive also. So he hit on a single over, well, a 7.3, and direct drive 12-speed.
Yeah, you do not want a direct drive with that top speed you're trying to achieve. You need an overdrive.
Okay. All right.
And in today's world, it no longer makes sense to spec a direct drive in hardly ever anymore. The new overdrive transmissions are more efficient. We don't have all that oil churn. That's why we used to try to stay away from running in overdrive, but it's the opposite now. We need to get the RPMs down. That's the whole point of down speeding, and we can only do that with these overdrive gears.
Okay. So 217, the DD13, what kind of horsepower should I be getting? Is 525 sufficient?
For me, it almost doesn't matter what they do at the factory, because I'm more than likely going to put a tune in it after.
Right. Does Pittsburgh tune the DDs, the Detroits?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So to me, I wouldn't worry too much about, horsepower rating from the factory. We're going to tune it later anyway. Sometimes they have weird rules about, with this setup, you have to go with this horsepower, just whatever they'll build.
All right. But the 13 will be just as efficient as the.
No, I think it'll be. I think it'll be more efficient. I don't think there's any big power difference whatsoever when we spec them correctly, and you get the lighter weight and possibly even more fuel efficiency.
Yeah. Well, lighter weight's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, for me,
I don't want to be going up the hills at 20 miles an hour. But,
that's never going to happen.
I would like to.
That's not going to happen. These engines are, like I said, they're capable of high horsepower, high torque. And again, we never, ever thought it was any big deal to run a 12.7, the most popular engine for decades. And nobody ever called that a small engine.
Yeah, didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
I just think, when you say 15, and now they got the 16 too, you're like, oh, yeah.
Well, the 16, they don't even sell the 16 anymore here. I think Volvo discontinued the 16 here. It's popular in Europe. They do heavier weights, and they do some things different over there. But I have tried to talk people out of 16-liter engines forever. Honestly, they've been some of the worst engines we've had.
Detroit still has one on the choice list.
Yeah. How many people spec it, and there's a reason they don't. That engine was a nightmare. And they just didn't pull as good as you would think they would.
Yeah, I didn't consider that one, but I was going to go with a 15, but I will explore the 13 with 217s now.
Yeah, and I think that's the right gear ratio. But go back and check with them, and then call us on Friday when Henry's on, and we'll be able to really dig down into some of the details on those. Brent, you know what? This has kind of changed over the years. You've probably watched this somewhat. There was a time where I had no guests on my show ever. no co-host, no guests.
Oh, really?
Years
Oh,
and
I
years and
remember
years.
this. Yes, yes.
Years and years. And I didn't really like having guests. It's kind of distracting for me. And
Right.
but I had to get used to it, because I finally had to admit, with all the different areas that I cover on the show, financial planning, retirement accounts,
Right.
taxes,
Right.
health, fuel mileage, and the trucks keep getting more and more complicated and more proprietary. You know, it used to be that it didn't matter which
Right.
truck you chose, which engine, which driveline, you could mix and match. It was like building a Mr. Potato Head truck, put on whatever parts you want.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
understood all of them. If you knew how a Cat engine worked, you knew how a Detroit worked. If you knew how a Eaton transmission
Right.
worked, you knew how a Spicer worked. Now, all these manufacturers are proprietary. You buy a Volvo truck with a Volvo
Oh, that's
engine,
true.
with a Volvo transmission, with Volvo differentials, and it's not the same technology as you're going to get from Freightliner or International or PACCAR. And it got to the point where I need people like you to come in and help me with rates. It's just too complicated for me to try to remember all this stuff, all the different
Right.
specs on all these different platforms. That's why I've got Joel with Volvo and Henry with Freightliner. And, you know, it's just got to the point where I needed the help. All right, let's.
Well, Kevin, what I'd say is that you just increased your experience in the market, and you started bringing in the right resources for your listeners to be able to benefit the most.
Yeah.
And so that's what I know about you. I know about you. You're always trying to find the best solution for anything that's going on, and that's what makes this whole situation work really well, because you're just bringing in the best resources. And I think that shows humility, which is one of the things I admire in any person, especially you. So that your humility says, you know what, I don't know everything, but I know people that do know things that can help outside of what my expertise is. And so that's really what the exciting thing is. And so, man, I just love being a part of this, because love hanging out with you. You're my brother, you know, and I'm lucky to be a part of this. And so I just appreciate it. And I'm running to a luncheon here at the McLeod conference. But it's been another great show, my man.
I was going to say, are you running through an airport right now? And then I remembered you're at the conference. So I thought, no, he's running through a conference.
I'm just walking. Yeah, I'm walking. So I'm always running somewhere, just like you, man. So always getting it done.
All right. Let's. Hey, Matt.
All right, man.
We got Matt on. Are you still good, Brenner? Or you got to go?
Yep. No, I have to run. I have to run this luncheon. Sorry, I've got to run.
No problem. Tell everybody.
But I appreciate today. You got it.
All right. Take care.
I'll do it. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Matt, what's on your mind?
Well, I was going to ask Brad if he had to go, because I know you don't look at the clock very often. So,
what clock?
So yeah, just some interesting things. It is bush hog.
Well,
why some of us Northerners came up with brush hog, I don't know, because I used to call it that too. But it's bush hog is an actual company.
So the one that I rented is actually called a Brush Boss. So I could say that's the name of the company.
Okay, well that's newer.
Yeah.
But yeah, in in history, but yeah, so the general term is rotary mower.
Okay,
what they
got
call them, you know, because John Deere makes one. You know, everybody makes one now.
Right.
But yeah, bush hog is.
That's the
original. I don't know if they're one of the original companies or what, but that's the name that everybody stuck to.
Got it.
Anyway.
Got it. All right.
But, yeah,
settled
for some
that
reason,
for now.
Brush hog. But yeah, I think at least in the northern half of the country, we use the term brush more than we use the word bush, but
that's what I've always heard.
It's a southern thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because bush hog, the company, is an Alabama company. That's why.
Got it.
Definitely Brett and everybody down that direction will say that. So.
That makes sense.
Anyway, so yeah, Labor Day, my regular southbound load didn't ship, and now again this week it didn't ship.
Oh boy.
Labor Day was because of the holiday, and then this week it's typical this time of the year. They stock up all summer long in a warehouse. And of course, the orders didn't go through. Where now they're going to start shipping out of the warehouse instead of the plant. So I booked the load last Thursday, and actually it's the same load I booked on Labor Day. Load of carrots, and through a broker going down to Florida because it's produce season in the northern part right now.
Right.
So 3 weeks ago, I got it for $100 more than what they had it posted for.
Okay.
Now this week, I asked for $100 more than what I hauled it for 3 weeks ago, and no questions asked. Should have asked for 200 more, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy with the rate. It's
Right.
I mean, I wish it was higher, but it's within reason. It's in market value by
Yeah.
all means. It's not even close to the low side, but
Okay.
so yeah, I think I think we've hit bottom at least, and we're on the. I agree with Brett. It's going to be a long, slow upward trend. We're not going to see the market flip, and all of a sudden, we're not going back to 2022 rates or
Yeah,
21
that-
rates. That was an anomaly on its own.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I still think the biggest wild card, and I think everybody feels this way, is the election. Nothing's going to change between now and the election unless it's some big event kind of thing that changes it. But the
Yep.
election itself could have a huge impact.
Well, I mean, obviously it does matter who wins as to how things in the long run play out, but I think for the first half of next year, it doesn't matter who wins, just the fact that the election's over
Yeah.
and businesses
right.
can make decisions on knowing
Right.
which direction we're headed.
No, I think that's a big part of it.
It'll be an
Yeah.
upward trend no matter who wins.
Right. Yeah,
'Cause all businesses all over the country just have everything on hold because there's so much stuff up in the air.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big part of it, is we're just kind of sitting back and waiting. Yeah, and business will always adjust and adapt, and we have to. So we'll see who gets into office, and then we'll make our decisions. But I'm hoping that there's some clear direction, and we at least can kind of get back to just doing what we do and get the economy going again. So we'll see.
Yep. So, yeah, other than that, another book I read recently was, I don't remember the author without going and looking it up, The Philosophy of Money. And this must have come out probably 2021 or late 20 it was written, because at the end, towards the end of his information, he's talking about the pandemic. But it was a lot of, I didn't learn anything new, and you won't learn anything new in this book either, but it's an interesting book. A lot about like what Dave Ramsey talks about is the math is the math. We can all make math work or not work, but it's a psychology and philosophy behind it of why people make decisions they make. Everybody knows credit card debt is bad.
Right.
So if everybody knows that, why would anybody go into credit card debt?
Well, one of the reasons we do, and he's right, this comes down to psychology a lot of times. One, we feel like we're getting something sooner if we can put it on a credit card, and we like instant gratification. Another one is the temptation of the points. And points can be significant. Business owners know this. If you use a business credit card that has points, I tell you the best example I remember of this was the year I spent at ATBS and working with them and flying everywhere with them on a business jet, which is really, really expensive. But Todd Amon put every expense for that jet on a credit card with points. He used to get some significant points. I mean, there's a lot of money. We do it. Our business credit card is on a point system, and we use the credit card for everything and pay it off at the end of the month. And you can accumulate a lot of points, which is dollars. And it's credit card companies hate people like that, except there's so few of them, they don't care. That they make enough money off everybody else that it just doesn't matter. But there's that temptation because, in essence, you can use the credit card to get what we would call free stuff. But then there's the risk, and most people fall victim to the risk instead of the opportunity.
Yeah, some of the interesting goes into, the marketing side of stuff, and with social media and, everything we see of the supposedly get rich quick stuff, which, people aren't actually getting rich.
Right.
They're getting rich selling the idea. It's the idea, the whole, the nothing down real estate side of it, and, the big influx of, the house renting. I forgot the name of it at the moment, but it's just the vacation rental side, Airbnb.
Oh, Airbnbs, yeah.
Yep. And it worked. Some of that, a lot of that was timing too. With COVID and different travel things, it boomed that market. But now it's starting to become a problem because people, if you can't rent it enough, they're not even covering the mortgage anymore. So now it's becoming an expense instead of an income. But just the business side of it alone, there's work to be done in that. It's never an easy business. There's none of this, what is the word they use for free money? The, passive income.
Oh yeah, right.
The only passive income there is the S&P 500 index.
Yes.
You just put money in and ignore it.
That's correct. Airbnbs,
and that's not a guarantee either.
Right. Airbnbs are nowhere near passive income. That's a ridiculous term. So again, if we look at that trend, what happened with Airbnbs, you had people really stretching, getting, big mortgages with very little down to buy these Airbnbs because at the time the math made sense. This is one of the problems with just using math. Things change. The math made sense when they bought the house. They could look at it and go, oh, no, look, in this market, I'll be able to rent it this many days for this rate. There are apps out there and programs that help you figure out if an Airbnb makes sense or not. And they're really good. Some of them now are using AI, and I've played around with them. And this is what gets people in trouble. At the time, the math made sense. Oh, look, I can own a second home, which I can use when I want to, and it will pay for itself and generate some income. When you look at it like that, why wouldn't you do it? The problem is that market doesn't last forever, and we're not in that market anymore. And now these people stretched so far that they can't afford these things anymore. They're not paying for themselves. They've got to take money out of their pocket every month to cover their cost. And it looks like we are going to have a real estate bubble burst. It's really, really starting to look like that's going to happen. And if that happens, then these people are in real trouble because then they can't even sell it and get out of it because the market will drop. They'll be so upside down. That's what happened back in 2008. People were buying second properties as rentals and flipping things. And the math made sense at the moment. And that's people used to come to me and ask me for advice. They knew I was a financial planner. And they'd say, look, here are the numbers. And the one thing I would try to get across to them, those are the numbers now. What if the numbers switch? What if we go back and look at what happened to the market back then it was 2008. And I was telling them what happens if we go back to 2001. But they should have been looking at this as what happens if we have another 2008 and the properties values crash and the rental market isn't as hot and we see what's happening. Now, total transparency, I've been buying properties for the last decade to make into potential Airbnb rentals. The difference is I'm not getting a penny of income from them. I was able to afford them with cash flow. I'm not dependent on any income. And for right now, I'm just going to sit out that whole market. I mean, there's no point in developing those properties right now, but that's the ultimate goal at some point. And my plan was, in the big picture, real estate, kind of like the stock market, never really goes down. It goes up and down and up and down and up and down, but it keeps going up. So if you're going to have those properties, the sooner you invest in them, usually the cheaper you're going to get them for.
So you're saying you had a business plan?
I had a little bit of a plan, yeah. I wasn't just throwing darts at a dartboard.
Yep. You didn't just hear somebody say it's a good idea to go buy a truck or go buy a property or do something and jump in without research.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny how that works.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the real estate bubble is highly dependent on what happens with interest rates. And just, I don't know if you I was off last week, but the Fed did drop 0.5%. Was
Yeah.
that 2 weeks ago now already? Over a week ago already.
Right.
And that is a big factor for business and all that, because a lot of business debt is only on 5-year terms.
Right.
So it's constantly getting refinanced.
Yep.
And just one company I love to use an example, because I hope they fail. Beyond Meat.
Oh, yeah.
At one point, their stock price was $80 or $90 a share. And I talked to you about this several months ago. They were down around $8 a share. That's too bad. And now they're down $6 something a share.
Yeah.
But they have, I don't remember the number, but multi-billions of dollars that are due to be refinanced within the next year.
Yeah,
And,
that's scary.
You know, more than likely, all that was originally financed at
the lower rate.
2%, 3%, somewhere in there. And
right.
So they're already struggling, and if they have to refinance billions of dollars at double, triple the rate, that'll hopefully do them in.
Yeah. Yep. We'll see what happens. All right. Good stuff, Matt. I'm going to move along. Calls are piling up on me again. Let's go to Minnesota. Tom, welcome.
Yeah, hey, Kevin. Yeah, I think, first of all, this is the oddest 45 miles I think I've ever driven before. I'm in the middle of, on Highway 52 in Minnesota, and in the middle of a cornfield, and so and Minnesota's going to be blue, of course, again.
Yeah.
And I say of course, but, probably with the cheating. But, drive by a corn farm, and the guy somehow made it with the corn, made a big old Trump sign, probably 20 feet high, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't see anybody making a Kamala sign or however you say her name. And then I drove by, those 50s buses? I don't even know who made them. Maybe Crown or somebody back in the 50s. Like if you're watching that any of those old movies where the bus stops and takes, back in the 50s, those buses with all the windows.
Yeah.
They were made by like Northrop Grumman. Some of them after the war, out of aluminum because they had so much leftover stuff. Some of them are really cool. But anyway, so whenever I drive around, like I'm going to be able to afford to do it I pin like big equipment, that's just sitting out in the field, or you know what I mean. I'll pin it on my map, and so I'm like, oh, because you always try to remember where. Oh, I saw that. Where did I see that? And so I saw those buses. It was a bus line, and there must have been 20 of them in there. Then they still had the old bus line name on them, and they were parked really in a nice row. I'm like, I'll be damned. That was weird. And then I drove by probably 8 foot, half acre of 8 foot pot plants that are just right off the road with the little fence around it. Like that'll keep people out.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what I'm going to see next, man.
Yeah.
This is the best trip ever.
Pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think that's right. But after the election, people are going to be either like shutting their doors on their businesses, or you know what I mean, ordering
I know.
new equipment and shit. You know,
Something.
I think
Yeah.
that's. But I think he's right. Yeah, we're gonna know more after the election. You'll know more after if Trump does happens to pull it off, like a miracle with all the cheating. I don't know. They say they can't cheat that much, but you watch them shut down the counting again. You watch them do it. Just watch, because they're going to do it.
Yeah, something's going to happen. Certainly feels that way.
Yeah. Were you talking about Mike Benz, BNZ, by chance? I didn't catch the where to go to watch that.
Okay, so I don't know if Mike Benz. I've heard that name before. I don't know anything about him. Somebody mentioned him on my show, so it wasn't me. I don't know if he's involved in this or not. Let me see if I can
pull it up and find out who was on there.
Yeah,
was it on? So Angie said it wasn't on YouTube though.
No, it's not. This stuff would never make it on YouTube. So here's how you find it. You go to unite.live. So
Unite. Okay, let me write it. Yeah, I know how to spell unite.
.live. Just like it sounds.
Okay.
Then when you get there, there's a lot of videos there. This is a hosting platform like YouTube, but you're going to see a lot of controversial stuff there that YouTube won't publish or YouTube will take down and cancel you for. So when you get there, then you go, there's a search bar right at the top. Just type in free speech and it comes right up, because the title of it is Free Speech Under Attack. I don't see his name anywhere here. You know who is in it? Dr. Ben Tapper. We've had Dr. Tapper on the show many times.
Ben who?
Tapper.
Oh, Tapper. Okay, yeah. That Mike Benz guy just did 2 or 3 days ago on the Sean Ryan podcast, and he did about 3 hours. It was just really enlightening, between the CIA and them going around and messing with everybody else's elections, and that's why they're trying to squash our free speech, because it costs them so much money. And Trump saying that he's going to get out of the Ukraine, and it all boils back down to the pipelines and given Russia being able to sell their LNG or whatever the I don't know, liquefied natural gas or just the regular oil. Though I have to listen to it again because there was so much to absorb there. You're like, no kidding. So he did say one other thing though that really was shocking about the 2016 or the 2020 election, when Bill Barr was the Attorney General. And do you remember the story about the guy? I think he was coming out of New York he was a truck driver going into Pennsylvania with a truck full of ballots.
Oh yeah, I
remember that story?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, you remember how it just, you never heard anything else about it?
Yeah, that happens a lot. Stories just disappear.
Yeah, well, that was because Barr told them to stop investigating that. If I hear about that story one more time, you're going to be in Omaha, Nebraska or something. You know what I mean? You're going to be losing your job. So and Barr was CIA top. He still is. Just but this I talk about. The Bushes, and though call me a far right winger, I guess. You know what I mean? For believing some of this stuff, but my God, man, I don't know. Like Bolsonaro down in Brazil,
right?
They told him not to question the election, but they didn't tell the guy that they were going to put in not to question the election.
Yeah.
You know, because they knew they were going to steal it. So the whole thing's just a complete disaster. I don't know what's going to happen if Kamala gets in. I know what's going to happen with me is I'm just going to get a gold claim and bug out until they and get one of those get one of those unplugged phones.
Yeah.
And you know, and Elon's little
That's right.
guide disc or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you see nothing but heel and asshole with Tom.
Yeah.
So
there you go. All right,
yeah.
Tom. Got to cut you loose. We got to get through some calls here. Good stuff as always. Let's go to Pennsylvania. Harold, welcome.
Just want to say dittos to what Brent said in his closing remarks about you and your crew and everyone you attract. I've been listening as long as Paul has, but unlike Paul, I called many times and hung up because I was scared to talk to you.
I've told that story about how many times I did that with Bruce Williams.
Yeah. I met Bruce a few times. I told you that there in Fresno, but
yeah,
a couple things. I back in 1973, I was going to the dentist and I was just sitting there in the waiting room and there was a book on the counter or in the little table there called None Dare Call It a Conspiracy, which talks about all this stuff that's happened to us over all these years. At the time, I was 23, and I didn't buy my first truck until 75. Oddly enough, it was January 6th. So now my anniversary date is tainted.
That's right.
But all the stuff they were talking about then, I mean, I was 15 years older than you, so I was kind of a child of the 60s, and we were questioning everything, questioning authority and all that. But
right.
I don't know. I kind of came back around to reality when I bought my truck and started listening to Bruce Williams and started thinking correctly then. But I don't know. There's another video that I watched maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm not sure it's available on YouTube anymore, but it was Kennedy to 9/11, which talks about all the stuff that the deep state and the government did. It was a British documentary. Have you ever seen that one?
I have not seen that one.
It is very interesting, and it may be on that platform you just talked about. But it was done by a documentary done by a British fellow. And I mean, they had actual footage of the day that Kennedy was killed, the night before, with Johnson in a huge meeting with a bunch of the people that conspired to do what they did. I don't know. It's pretty eye-opening. It just shows the background of all this crap.
I know
that's come up. It's good. It was very well done. It's a couple hours, I think, and I rarely watch stuff in the truck, but I had an easy day, so I did. But
you can make yourself crazy with some of this stuff.
Go ahead. Yeah, 2 different times in my life, we've been well over 100,000 in credit card debt, which we used as a factoring company. And I know we just had no choice as we were growing a couple different businesses, but finally out of that.
Yeah.
Shout out. Go ahead.
Yeah, I said I've been there too. It's the entrepreneurial curse. We always think we can overcome all of that stuff.
Well, we did. My accountant that I had for about 40 years, when we did it the first time, he said, "I've never seen anyone come out of this without going bankrupt." But we did it twice, and we made it through all that. And thanks, Matt, for the referral of the book, The Millionaire Next Door. That was an eye-opening book, and we've kind of accidentally come into that category, not by budgeting or planning, but by what Matt said there towards the end there, by buying a truck without any plan. And then we bought real estate with no plan, and we were able to hang on to some of it for a long time, and that put us in that category. But we were accidental folks in that realm now.
Yeah, no doubt.
But your you've been such a blessing to many of us out here, Kevin. You just, I mean, even though I don't call very much, I'm listening to you every single day.
Well, thank
And
you.
don't like it when you take off a week, but we got through it. I'm still listening to the books and doing all that, so that helps me get through the time.
I've talked about this a little bit. We put our property up on a site called Harvest Toast, and we've used Harvest Toast for years when we travel, and it's just unusual places where you can go park an RV. That's the whole point. You pay an annual membership, and then you get this list of places, and there's an app, and you can look it up on the map and along your route, and it's going to be places like small hobby farms, wineries, farm stand kind of places, or just people that have some land. There's usually no hookups, and you just park there, and they don't charge anything. You usually just try to, if it's a little farm stand, you buy stuff while you're there. If it's a winery, you try some of their wine, that kind of thing. So we put our property up, and it's becoming popular. We had last weekend and this weekend, and we met some pretty interesting people. But one of them I was talking to, and this thing came up about the schedule because he was watching me work out there, and he said, "Boy, you put a lot of hours in at this." And I said, "Yeah." And I'm kind of still working a full-time job, and we got talking about it. And he said, "Well, you should just be able to take a day off whenever you want." And I said, "Well, yes and no. I can take a day off, and there's nobody that's going to tell me I can't take a day off." I said, "But my listeners really don't like it when I take time off. I always hear about it, and then I feel guilty. Like, well, it's a work day. I should be working." So I get that. And I remember feeling the exact same way, listening to people like Bruce Williams or Clark Howard, or, some I'm just drawing a blank on his name. The guy that first told me about the book Atlas Shrugged, and then I learned what a libertarian was. Neil Bortz. Neil Bortz. I used to feel the same way.
I've never heard. I don't know who that was. I missed that one.
Oh, you got to go. I'll bet you can find old recordings of Neil Bortz. He hasn't been on the air for years. He wrote a couple of good books. Neil Bortz wrote 2 books on the fair tax. It's also the first time I had ever heard about the fair tax was from Neil Bortz. He wrote 2 books about the fair tax. And then he wrote another book, and I can't remember the title of it. Do I have it back here on my bookshelf? It's about his.
He was a radio host.
Radio guy, yeah, radio guy for years and years.
Really?
Yeah, really, really good. In fact, I would have to say I learned everything about politics from Neil Bortz first. Bruce Williams for me was more business, and he didn't talk a lot about politics. Neil Bortz was almost all politics, but not. It's not a show like trying to watch. Rush or Hannity or listen to them when they were on the radio. His is, I don't know why his feels different. It doesn't feel like it's all politics, but it mostly was. But it was. Was
his a local show or nationwide?
No, he was syndicated. He was out of Atlanta, and I listened to him on the Orlando station when I lived in Orlando. So he was syndicated nationwide.
I missed that one. I'll have to go back and find some of that.
See if you can find. Really, he was funny. He was, but he was where like I said, I learned about a libertarian, the fair tax, Atlas Shrugged, all of that stuff was from Neil Bortz.
Yeah, Atlas Shrugged. I've listened to that one 3 times.
Yeah,
and every time it becomes. It becomes more relevant. I mean, I just related to the steel guy so much and his love for work.
Yeah.
Howard, I think, was his name.
Yeah.
But what an amazing commentary on work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could never express it that well, but I feel it. I feel the way he described it. Like, Bruce and you guys talk about how we just love what we do, and people quit and think they're going to retire, and
Yeah.
I don't know. At this age, I have to go renew my license again at 75. And I was just looking up. They give you 4 years at 75, so I'm hoping I can make it to 79.
There you go. Good stuff.
I just love. It gives me something to do every day. I don't have. I've got 2 acres, but not as big a property as you have to work on. But it wouldn't keep me busy all the time.
Yeah, well, mine's keeping me pretty busy. So when I talk about land clearing, I think I've cleared about 2 acres in the last couple of weeks.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is a lot of work.
The forest was kind of trying to reclaim, and I kept looking around, going, "Why does it feel like this keeps getting smaller and smaller?" And it was. I mean, the stuff grows out there so fast. That I'm making sure I get the full benefit of the 6 acres. So I probably got another acre still to clear.
Wow. Be careful.
Yeah, I know it's a lot of work, but it keeps me busy and it's good for me. Hate to cut you off, Harold. Got to run. The calls keep piling up today. People want to talk about stuff. Let's go to Illinois. Jerry, welcome.
Hi, Kevin. A couple things real quick, and then I'll get to my book recommendation.
Sure.
First off, I want to piggyback on Matt's definition of a mower. I think the original term was brush hog until the company started making them called bush hog. However, based in Illinois, and we've got a major manufacturer in Oregon, Illinois called Woods Manufacturing Company, and their big wing mowers are called bat wings. So nobody in Illinois ever goes mows ditches with a bush hog. They always go get the bat wing. It don't matter if it is a bush hog mower, it's still a bat wing. That's a ubiquitous term in Illinois is a bat wing.
There you
go get the bat wing and mow your ditches.
Yeah, there you go. So
anyway, that's a clarification on that.
Got it. That's one we're never going to solve. That's one that is like
nope, it's just
depending on where you grew up. So I'll ask you, did you grow up calling it soda, pop, Coke? What are some of the
soda pop?
Oh, so you called it soda
pop.
Oh.
Yep.
See, in some places it was just called soda. That's more of the South. Pop is kind of a Midwest thing. Soda pop. Where did you grow up?
Illinois.
Yeah, see, we never put the word soda in there in Ohio. We just called it pop.
Yeah, you Ohioans is weird.
I know. But that's another one.
Far east for that.
And then
you'll get this. This is just this is a hilarious side note. I go to a restaurant out in California where it's a real nice high-end restaurant, and on the menu, and you'll get a kick out of this, is that clear out there in California, they make an issue on the beef on their menu, their steaks on their menu, flown in. It's Eastern beef flown in fresh from Chicago. Well, hell, you bunch of ringworm. Chicago in the East.
No, it's not.
It's not the East. So anyway,
so the one that
the
one that really got me was in the deep South. No matter what drink it was referred to as a Coke. Even if it wasn't a Coke, it could be an orange Fanta. Yep. But they called everything with bubbles and sugar in it. They just called it a Coke. Now I saw one just the other day online, and it made me chuckle a little bit. Somebody said they were on their way to get their sweet tea, and that sweet tea was so wonderful for them because it helped them break their Coke addiction. And I said,
oh, for heaven's sake.
No, it didn't. You weren't addicted to Coke. You're addicted to sugar, and now you're drinking sweet tea. That didn't change anything.
Yeah. Terminology, isn't it?
Yeah.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want to clarify something on Function Health. I know that Matt in Tennessee highly recommended it, and I finally got back to communicating with him on the text thing. It's just infuriating to me that you can't pick up the phone and call somebody.
I know.
They got a text thing, but it's always a delay of a couple of days. Well, anyway, here's what I wanted to share with you. Anyway, is the fact that I read all the literature and everything, and they make such a point about the fact that your initial blood draw is about 15% of what you give when you're giving blood. However, the nearest lab to me is about 70 miles away, which is not the distance that matters. It's the fact I don't go through there very often in a truck, and you've got to make an appointment. You got to go to the lab, but they absolutely, positively will not budge on the fact that you have to have 2 appointments for your initial blood draw, and they have to be at least 2 or not more than 10 days apart.
Oh boy.
Well, that is pretty difficult to work that schedule in on a truck. I mean, you can go make an appointment and get your blood drawn, and then get back in the truck and go, and I may not be back in that area again for 10 days, and to stop and get in the car and drive up there, it's just pretty damn inconvenient, and they won't budge on that at all. They just won't budge on that at all. So
well, I'm assuming that's because their protocol requires those numbers to be measured twice within that time. That's probably their baseline.
Well, I thought it was just because of so much blood draws. What I gathered, that just they only do so many. They do 100 mile markers, and they do part of them the first time and the rest of them the second time.
Okay,
and they're just. That's it, I gathered from it just too damn much blood at the same time. I even offered to sign a waiver. I'll do it all in one day. I don't care. I'll sign a waiver. If I walk out your door and faint, I sign a waiver. But nope, absolutely, they won't budge on that at all. So I don't know whether I'm going to get it to work or not. So
yeah, all right.
That's just a side note on that. So now on to a book. I thought you would really appreciate this book, and maybe a good one for your book club. I don't know. Barons by Austin Freerick. It takes 7 barons in the basically in the food industry, and profiles 7 barons and gives you their history and how they got where they are, and gives you a really good in-depth look at 7 different barons. Very interesting book, and gives you the history of them and everything. I think he arrived at a reasonable conclusion, but in some ways I think he came about it in the wrong way. He's more or less putting out these barons to be villains because they're evil. They're big and evil. However, I think part of the problem I saw with the book was that he arrived at that conclusion from the backwards way of looking at it. For example, first chapter he has is the Hansons in Iowa, who is the 4th largest pork producer in the country, and they own Iowa Select Foods or Farms or something like that. And he's blaming them for dropping hog confinements all over the state of Iowa. But what he fails to realize is that if there's no demand, there won't be any supply. The Hansons aren't walking up to a farmer and putting a gun to the head and saying, "You will build a hog confinement here. Come hell or high water, we're going to shoot you if you don't." So there has to be a demand for their stuff before there can be a supply. The Hansons are supplying hog confinements of pigs, but if there wasn't a demand for it, the Hansons wouldn't be supplying confinements of pigs. Yeah. So I think he arrives at the reasonable conclusion, but he comes at it from the backwards angle. And several of them are really, really fascinating. He's got one about the Fair Oaks Dairy in Indiana. He's got a chapter on the Ryman family out of Germany that own gobs and gobs of coffee shops and cafes, and they own Keurig, and they own Green Mountain Coffee. They are like 40% of the coffee market in the United States or something like that. And the last one he arrived at, the last chapter was profiling the Waltons, but it was basically based on the grocery store chains, but he couldn't mention it without mentioning the Waltons because Walmart is the biggest grocery supplier in the country.
Yeah. Well, I just added that book to my Kindle, so thank you. You just made my unreadable list even
It's not
longer.
a real long. It's not a real long read, and it might could be a short enough book. You could do it on your book club deal, maybe, Kevin. So
I may do that. I've got
all
it
right,
on my list.
I've had 2 other calls come in while I've been on the phone with you. I better get them. So thanks, Kevin. Appreciate all you do for us.
All right, thanks for the call. Let's head off to Louisiana. James, welcome.
Hey, Kevin, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Oh, I had some questions, or my wife did, about the Lona Life bone broth.
Yeah.
With the natural flavors.
Okay.
He's always saying that they're in most things they're synthetic.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's not
So
true.
I'm just curious.
Well, here's what it is. We do need to be concerned when we see natural flavors on the label. And when we first found Lona Life, it was one of the first questions I had for them. Here's the reason they use natural flavors. You're not going to see things on an ingredient list like basil, oregano, garlic, salt. You might see them. A lot of times you won't. And they're allowed to list those things under natural flavors. And it's to protect their recipe. If somebody has to put every ingredient on the label, I can now copy that. It won't be hard for me to go in and play around with amounts. But if I don't even know what the herbs are or spices or flavorings, now it's going to be next to impossible for me to be able to do that. So it is a concern, and we always make sure we double check. We've had products in our store before that have this. So we always double check. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you what it's not. It's not anything that I wouldn't eat. It's not MSG. That's the big one we look for, because that one is allowed to be listed under natural flavors, and MSG has some real problems. I won't consume anything with MSG in it. So, and there are a couple other things we would worry about. And like I said, we always check for those, and we verify that that's not what's in it. So I can tell you there's nothing bad, but I can't tell you exactly what the natural flavors are either.
Yeah, I was trying to tell her that, but I have a hard time. We go back and forth about all this, but she's
correct.
6-year-old woman in menopause, and she's gaining a whole bunch of weight now, but she won't eat beef hardly or anything.
That's a problem.
It's tough right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to find her another source of protein. Any kind of meat anymore, she won't hardly eat.
How about eggs?
She eats eggs, but she gets tired of those. I mean, she's not the type of person who eats the same. I can eat the same thing every day for the next year. It wouldn't bother me a bit.
The funny thing is,
she has to have, change.
The funny thing about that is, I used to be like her. I wanted a wide variety of food. I would get so bored with food to the point where, I started learning how to cook other cuisines, and got to the point where I didn't even want to go out to eat anymore because the food I made at home was better. But I my recipes kept getting more and more complicated, and I wanted more variety. Now, I swear I could eat ribeyes and eggs every day and really be happy with it.
I hear you. I'm the same way now, but she's really struggling. I mean, I can't get her to go grain free or anything, but she doesn't sit around and eat crap sugar and stuff all day long.
And
but
she is correct. When you see natural flavors, you should try to find out, one, the big one is whether it's MSG or not. If it's MSG, that's just a no-go for me.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right, sir. That's all I had for you. Have a good day. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Arkansas this time. Richard, welcome.
Hey, Kevin. I'll be 54 and 26 this week, and I'm from Southeast Georgia, and I've always called it Coke, no matter what flavor it was.
That seems so weird.
My question is, go ahead.
That would just seems weird to me. That you're not really telling me what you're drinking.
Yeah. I just always called it Coke.
I know that was that was definitely a thing.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, I've been listening to you for quite a while now, and a couple years ago, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I called you, and you kind of helped me out, get me motivated to lose some weight. I lost some weight. I think I was down to 180, mid 180s. And I fell off the wagon. I actually got buried and went back up. Before I lost the weight, I was up to about 210, 215. And I got off and started. I think my biggest issue was just having stuff right beside me in the floorboard, just pulling it out and eating it, even if it was somewhat kind of healthy.
Right.
But I got back up to 205 about 2 months ago. I realized I was 205, and I'm like, I just cannot do this. And my blood sugar, I always check my blood sugar, and it would be getting up to 130, 120s in the morning on my fastings. So I decided I can't do this. I got to lose some weight. I went full keto carnivore, and I lost down to 190 something. And I figured I'd do carnivore strict, and I've been doing strict carnivore for about, I'd probably say about 3 weeks now. I eat nothing but meat. I even cut out all the sugar. I don't drink no more sweet tea.
Okay.
I don't drink, and when I sweeten my tea, I sweeten it with stevia. I buy unsweet tea, sweeten it with stevia.
Okay.
I don't drink coffee because I can't drink coffee unless it's sweetened and got a bunch of creamers in it. And so I cut all that out. All the thing I've been eating now is just meat, a lot of fat on it, chicken.
Good.
And so I've been eating that, and my meat, I have a lot of fat on it.
Good.
I get the biggest steaks I can with fat on it. So I lost. Right now this week, this morning I weighed myself. I weighed 184 pounds.
Congratulations.
And I was ecstatic about that.
Awesome. Yeah.
My blood sugar is down on my fastings. It's still a little up there, about 110. It'll be at 110 or lower. This morning it was at 84. I was happy about that. But one thing I've been noticing, I've been hearing on some of these videos I've been watching about, because I've been trying to get a lot of videos in on some more recipes on carnivore diet, because like the previous caller, I want a little bit of change. But I'm like you. If you give me a fatty cut of a steak, I'll eat it all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one thing I've been noticing is they've been talking about protein numbers, and I understand you might need to get a certain amount of proteins, but I can eat a 2-pound steak all day long. And I kind of figured out the proteins. Is that too much, or does it really matter?
I don't understand this whole obsession with protein, with all these formulas. Oh, you have to have this many grams per pound of body weight. No, just ignore all that crap. Seriously.
Okay, I was thinking.
I don't understand. And all I can think of is this is just another way to sell a bunch of protein products, like protein bars and protein shakes and whey protein. And I've never understood why we would spend a penny on that garbage when all you have to do is eat another steak. If you're not getting enough protein, eat a couple eggs, eat another steak, eat some more chicken. I mean, how can you not get enough protein on a carnivore diet? And
right.
And I don't believe that there is too much, because I believe our body self-regulates. When you eat fatty meat, there will come a point where your body will say, I'm not eating another bite. I couldn't swallow one more bite if I had to. That doesn't happen with a lot of other foods. You put a big plate of pasta in front of me, and I can just eat and eat and eat and eat, and I never feel like it's enough, right? You never get completely satisfied. That does not happen when I'm eating a meal with heavy fat and protein. There are times where I feel like I am starving, and I will eat, this is not an exaggeration, 4 or 5 ounces of beef, and I am completely satisfied, and I won't eat for hours.
Wow. Yeah, like I say, I could eat. Well, I'll go to, and I get my stuff from Walmart, because it's kind of hard in a truck to get into places.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Good grocery stores. But I buy the Angus beef. I don't know if there's any difference, but I don't buy the other brand that Walmart sells. But I try to get the Angus beef. But I was getting steak, but it was getting so expensive, so I would get a round roast, or whatever you call it, the roast part. It's really thick. It looks like a big steak, but it's like 2 inches thick.
Right.
and I could buy about 2.5 pounds for the price of one little steak. So that's basically what I've been eating. And I'll eat the whole thing. I'll eat the whole 2.5 pounds.
Yeah, well, like I said, you can't overdo it. Really, I believe that. If you're now, like I said, sometimes I'm very happy with 4 or 5 ounces of beef. Working the way I worked this past weekend with that much physical labor, just for
Yeah.
lunch one day, I stopped and ate like 1.5 pounds of beef. I mean, I was really hungry, and I just kept eating. And the beauty of it is, when you eat this way, I tell people, just if you're hungry, eat. If you eat and you're still hungry, eat more. You just shouldn't be hungry.
Right. Quick question about fasting. I'm going to try to do at least a 36-hour fast, or if not a 48-hour fast every now and then. Coming off a fast that long, or maybe even a 72-hour fast. Coming off of a fast, me being on carnivore, what would be the best way to break that fast?
You know, there's probably lots of theories and ideas out there on this. I just think that's completely up to you, and I would experiment with things. I don't think there's any
Okay,
rules about this.
I just didn't want to overload I just didn't want to get overloaded with a bunch of beef. I wouldn't eat a 2-pound piece of meat right off the fast. What I've been doing is just trying to do in bone broth. Then I'll eat it like some eggs or whatever, and then the next day I'll go into eating whatever I used to normally eat.
If that's working, keep doing it. Because really, I don't think there are any real rules about this. It's whatever works for you.
Okay. I appreciate it, Kevin. Get the next caller.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. Let's go to Oklahoma. Paul, welcome.
Howdy.
What's on your mind today?
In New Zealand, we call it soft drink.
Soft drink. Okay.
And yeah. And when it comes to brush hogging or bush hogging, we call it bushwhacking.
Bushwhacking.
And anyone that's a WWE fan from years ago, remember the bushwhackers.
Got it. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Just depends on where you grew up.
There you go. That's right.
So, on Trump's proposed tax plan, if he gets elected,
yeah,
I think I'll go back to being a hourly paid driver, because he's saying that overtime will be tax free.
You know, I really liked his policies the first time around. This time, I don't know if he's pandering to votes or what's going on, but his tax ideas this time I completely disagree with. There's 3 I can think of, and I do agree with one, and that is no tax on Social Security. There never used to be tax on Social Security. You paid tax all your life. You paid tax, so you have some Social Security money. Why do we have to keep paying tax on it? And here's why I think that one is different than the other 2. The other 2 policies he's talked about that I hate are no tax on tips and no tax on overtime. The reason I hate those is because that's the government picking winners and losers. Everybody will eventually have the opportunity to collect Social Security. Now, you might die before you get there. I get that. But it didn't pick winners and losers. It affects everybody across the board to take the tax away from Social Security. But why would we reward just one group of people based on their particular work situation? And here's the other thing you have to be careful of. How are we going to define tips? What if I decide that all the money that people give me, only 50% of it is to pay for the product? What if I say the other 50% is tips?
I'll still tip you pretty good.
See, that's what I mean. What if I come online, if he says, okay, no tax on tips, what if I come on and say, look, we're going to cut our prices by 20% in the store, and I want you to just be honest and fair and just tip me the 20% as well, and then I won't have to pay tax on it. See, that's a problem. So I think I think that's just him pandering for votes. Hopefully he doesn't really want to enact those things.
Well, I guess Tom will tell.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
But
God
I have
help
to
us
say
if
this.
Kamala Harris gets it.
Right.
Yeah.
This isn't even a close call. Even if he decides he's going to push for no tax on tips and overtime, I'm still voting for him because it's better than the alternative.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't believe that people are even contemplating voting for her.
Oh.
So.
I know.
So,
I know.
right. I got to go. I got to
right. All right. It looks like that's going to do it. That is our last call of the day. I'm going to get out of here. Normal week this week. We have shows every day. Tomorrow's the Power Hour. I don't think I have any guests this week, but I'm not positive. So I'll let you know. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Be safe. Be profitable. Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.